Okay, so in this session at the beginning, I do want to assure those who do not read Chinese at all, you're Chinese illiterate, that is okay. Okay, because what you probably don't know is a lot of contemporary Chinese, I would say most of them, are also Chinese illiterate in classical Chinese. They can't read classical Chinese, the original works of the ancient Chinese literature or philosophy. They have to have the help from the translation into the contemporary Chinese. And if you ask me, a lot of those uh, somewhat emerged scholars today in China, they at least those very high profiled one appeared on the Chinese TV all the time. I would say I found their translated works uh, had very liberal interpretation from the original, I guess, the essential part of the Chinese philosophies. Um, that, of course, they're entitled to their own opinion. So the version from here will not echo what you hear from the Chinese TV broadcasted sessions or lectures. In fact, I personally have a lot to disagree with them. And of course, it's just they're entitled to their opinion, right? The only thing I'm hesitating, I guess, to say is I hope the mass is not misled by the opinions completely off as far as I'm concerned. So, anyway, um, I just want you to know that the reason that I actually could and I still am able to read the classical Chinese original literatures and philosophies is exactly because I did not go to any formal education Chinese school because at my time they were simply not available. They were shut down, closed. The teachers were kicked to the countryside for re-education, uh, you know, by the farmers. There's nothing wrong with that, I guess. Excuse me, except for at the Chinese culture, pretty much oversimplified. Okay. Um, I guess at least I personally think the really, you know, great part of the Chinese culture or the ancient one was the Chinese elite culture. Okay, but that was completely removed from the Chinese history. So Chinese grew up in China today. They, I don't know what they know about it, but I learned all that on my own. I did extensive reading because I, I could not go anywhere. So I was locked into my own place all the time until I graduated from the high school without all the, the formal education. We were learning all this political propagandas all the time. But that's okay. So I made the most out of it. So when you think about that, that is pretty much Daoism at work already. I just didn't know that before I even, I guess, began fully to study Taoism. Um, in the very ancient Chinese history, there was this uh, crown prince in the Zhou dynasty. So, in Chinese, it was Zhou Wang. Zhou Wang. The crown prince was kept as the hostage, or I guess hostage would be the word, just to be, I guess, displaying the loyalty uh, to the emperor. And he was away from his own hometown. He was not really jailed, but he, let's say, house arrest or something like that. So of course he was not happy. So for 10 years, he was basically, you know, placed in a place that without the freedom to walk about or something. So what did he do within the 10 years that he lost his personal freedom? He studied. Okay, so what he did, he put the what is known as I Ching today in the West. The Chinese pronunciation is I Jing. So before him, there was always the works, and he was the one put it together. And the version that is circulating, to the day, is the Zhou version of the E, which was basically what he put together, right? Based on what he understood while he was, doing this archiving and sorting and put it together as a book. Um, Obviously, he studied, he learned a lot, right? So after that, of course, when he had the chance, he started his own either prince state or state, um, and he did really well for himself. But Dao De Jing was actually something, you could trace back all the way to I Ching. And I Ching, nobody could even tell you today when exactly, before the Zhou version, a lot of people know there were many, many versions, but how many exactly, trace back to how, far back, nobody could tell anymore. So thanks to this crown prince, under the house arrest, he contributed single-handedly so that the world today has this I Ching, right? I Ching is all about yin and the yang, right? So Daoism is all about that too. So what I want to talk about today is something Daoism had been pretty well acquainted by all the kings, the emperors in throughout the Chinese ancient history. For what? Longevity. Okay. Uh, Interesting enough, Taoism, basically deal with the mother nature and the human being, the human life, so insignificant compared to the mother nature. Zillions of years history out there, but some Taoists were out there seeking the immoral, formula. So they were doing whole kind of things and basically throw this and that into fire. And that's how chemistry came about. Yeah, funny enough. But not just that. So when it kept evolving and evolving, eventually, remember I mentioned about the Chinese cuisine, basically the herb functions, and that of course, mixed with the Chinese herb medicine, the whole theory. But that was all based on the yin and yang. So Taoism actually played a hand there too. So the longevity, of course, it starts with the state of mind. You want to have your peace of mind. You don't get all stressed out, right? How do you avoid getting stressed out? By having this open mind. Look at the world. Look at what's happening around yourself, in the perspective, more able to see through. You look through and you see through. That's where Taoism coming, right? So with that, let's say you just had a really big problem with your co-workers at the royal court, right? Those fellow politicians, of course you do. And you just had a very long day. You came back home. You have a little Chinese, rice wine or tea, and then you started, you know, doing your ink brush painting or calligraphy or music making, and then immediately you retrieved into your, not just a private chamber, but also a little personal space. Now that helps, of course, it does all the time. Both the Chinese and Western School of Medicine, recognize, basically establish relationship between happiness and the longevity, right? Or at least the health condition, personally. So that's one. And then two, what do you eat, what you drink, right? So, of course, we talk about tea or water, or by the Chinese herb medicine theory, at the winter time when it's really cold, have a little, Chinese liquor. Actually, it was necessary. Um, but anyway, what do you eat? That went back to the Chinese cuisine, the traditional Chinese cuisine that worked with the herb medicine theories. Um, but then that's not just it. You need to do exercise. So that's why, remember, I was talking about my Tai Chi 13 move or the Tai Chi boxing, all that. It was not meant to, for everybody, at least not for everybody, to, you know, either to attack somebody or to defend yourself just for that. It's more for the exercise because in the Taoist theory, you would have this positive energy, circulating within your body. It's called a qi, okay? In Chinese, it's called qi. So even in Japanese, they have this word. I think so. That's evidence that at least they picked up some concept, not the whole thing, but some concept. So in Japan, when you meet with somebody, you would ask them, like, this is how you open. Say, o genki desu ka? What that means is, do you still have that positive energy? I'm just reading from the Chinese character, the kanji. From the do you still have that positive energy, sustained? If you do the literate, direct translation, that's what it means. Funny enough, the Japanese ask that, but the contemporary Chinese don't. But it's all about basically, evolving around, because in the Chinese herb medicine theory, which also traces back to the same, yin-yang system, if any living things, anything alive, you got to have this positive energy, circulating uh, and moving within your body. According to the same theory, the blood, you know also moving about, inside the blood veins, that was basically just following the qi, the positive energy. So if your qi or your positive energy stop moving, think about the blood, right? So all that exercise, the Tai Chi, what's Tai Chi? Tai Chi is exactly describing about the yin and yang in a, indefinite movement. That's what Tai Chi is. Exactly about yin yang. So Tai Chi, boxing or Tai Chi sword, 13 move or whatever number of moves, they were all designed to cultivate, to enable, to help the positive energy keep circulating. Uh, you know, uh, if that stops, you will have your health problem. So in the Chinese theory, in this yin yang system, all your organs inside your body, they were all uh, basically working with the yin yang system, and you need to keep a balance. So when your chi started to having problem, you need a little, let's say, fine tune. Okay, so but if you keep doing this exercise every day, actually you're supposed to do twice a day at least. The first one is the daybreak, early in the morning. That's the time the yin is coming out from the mother nature, and then the yang is coming in to replace it. So in the morning, you're taking in, to exchange for the yin and yang, you put your, basically, uh, your exhale to have this out of your body, and you inhale, you go up and down, up and down, and in and out, in and out. Exercise. First one in the morning. Second one is before the sun down. Okay, again, that's the yin-yang, just the other way around exchange. And you still do the, exhale and inhale, basically your body, you get on the, I guess on your toe and then back on your heel. On your toe, back on. So your body goes in this upward and downward motion and back and forth while you're doing the inhaling and exhaling, in and out, up and down at the same time. Who taught me this? I have a master in San Francisco. He's supposed to be the best Chinese medicine man in entire world today, because the best one are not in the contemporary China, because they apparently don't have the culture to sustain that kind of talent anymore. So anyway, this was suggested by that gentleman, and he mentioned about this Daoism too. That the first time I met him, it was he was introduced by a white medical doctor at UC Berkeley Medical School. So we talked about, we were talking about the Chinese philosophies, and apparently he was aware of the Suzuki, the San Francisco based Zen, I guess, movement, traced back from 1960s. And I was talking about Daoism a little bit, and then so somehow our subject, transferred to the Chinese herb medicine, and so I was introduced to this gentleman. So anyway, that was about the longevity, right? So you back to the point, your exercise, if you keep doing it, that actually keep you in a good shape for very, very long time. But for some reason, if you stopped or something else happened, so you start to have a little problem, you need a little help. So this is where and when that herb cuisine come in. You go to the Chinese medicine man, and the real qualified Chinese medicine man, not those got a certificate after 3 months training and started acting like a doctor, okay? Not those. So someone that's really qualified could actually tell by taking your pulse, and then they will tell you, you're out of balance, either too much yin or too much yang. Remember, too much yin, that means not enough yang. Too much yang, that means there's not enough yin, right? So the Chinese medicine man, the real one, the qualified one, will tell you to start eating this and that a little more. And today, if you are diagnosed by the real Chinese medicine man, the herb medicine, even if this doctor did not tell you that, you can go online and search, based on what he diagnosed, you can find out online what is the herbs that you need. And once again, like I mentioned before, any vegetable, any fruits are regarded as herbs, okay? So whether you need, take in a little more for the yin or taking a little more for the yang, but at one point, the balance is reached, you cannot keep going, because if you do, the balance is lost again. It was like this, and now it's like this. You want to be right here, right? So if this herb cuisine is not working because because in the Chinese theory is you start early at the preventive, stage, so you don't have to arrive at a very late stage and try to figure out what to do when it's already too late, and the things you can do is basically too little, right? But let's just say, for all this, reasons, right or wrong, you ended up there. The herb medicine will not help you. So the next step, go to the Chinese medicine man, the real good ones, the authentic ones. They will do this, acupuncture for you, right? There's no real, drug needed per se. and Chinese just simply, unless it is for the combat, field medicine, Chinese don't believe in surgeries. There's always some, thing they can do without the surgery. But anyway, it's lumpy for that. Okay, just acupuncture. And if that's not doing enough for you because you are already at this stage, because you just ignored your own body, the health for way too long, you never did any real exercise. When the Chinese medicine may ask you, did you do any exercise? They don't mean, did you go out there jogging? Okay. They're asking, did you do this qi related exercises, basically to enable the better circulation of the positive energy inside your body. But let's say you ignored, skipped all that for way too long. And so even the acupuncture could not help. Now they're gonna give you the medicine. Okay? Now here is the key part. Differentiate the Chinese medicine from all the Western contemporary medicine. This is why I am a strong believer, a big believer of Chinese herb medicine. Okay? Because for the Chinese herb medicine, every individual patient is different. The prescription they give a patient will not be copied to any other individual. It's just basically all individual based. Why? Because one, you are so different from any other person as far as the your body, your health, and everything goes. So theoretically, they just cannot give you the same thing. Like they would give to your brother, sibling, related by blood. No. But even for the same patient, they will not always give you the same, prescription, because things change, right? Evolves. So after the patient took the first medicine based on the first prescription, the next one will be adjusting based on how it went, the first one, and then adjust. So in old days, at least to the generation of my grandfather on my mother's side, he could read and understand all those medical prescriptions, and he could tell, is this a good doctor or bad doctor by how many different ingredients were contained in one prescription. The best doctors, they only give like a few. And the good doctors, they will probably give a dozen. Why? Because they're not so certain. They're not so absolute confident that, what they give absolutely would work. Or is that safe? So they try to, get a balance by, throw in a little more. So back then, that was the culture, for not even ancient Chinese, just the generation of my grandfather. He could always read, right? And if you're not a great doctor, any Chinese citizen back then, they pick up that prescription and they read like, okay. They're not going to take the medicine from you. They will go to a different doctor. Now, you think this is pretty good, right? Well, two people that I guess somehow could relate personally on the personal level, they were pretty good Chinese herb doctors. Just by telling you about their stories, then you can realize the herb medicine in the ancient China was not really a big deal. It was really just part of good deed practice, okay, to help the world. Remember we said about that a little earlier? When you're in a position to help the world, you do that. But before you arrive at that position, you purify yourself. So don't be a trash, a burden of the society, right? So here goes the first story. which is uh, my mom had, uh, you know, Manchurian aunt married a Han Chinese, uh, you know, this kind of a mixed marriage after the Manchurian Empire, basically fell apart. So the Manchurians started to have the mixed marriage with the Han, which is the majority ethnic group today in China. So this Han Chinese, the um, the household he was born, raised at, was basically a gold shop owner, meaning their business basically day in day out they were selling, buying all the gold stuff. Basically, they were not worried about their 3 meals a day. So this guy, the husband of my, I guess, great aunt, uh, basically the guy didn't have anything to do. He did not want to go to the ghost store owned and operated by his parents. So he basically spent lots of his own spare time learning the medicine, and then he started to practice. His name is Gao Feng Tong. If you Google up, very, very famous. Today in Beijing or in China, a lot of herb doctors try to claim, I followed after him and blah, blah, but actually he passed away back in 1960s. But anyway, so this guy, what he was doing, he opened up his shop. Okay, he was offering completely free medical service to anyone come into his shop. Okay, and all the medicines he bought and paid for, he gave away to all those patients who he treated. So he gave the prescription and he offered the free medicine. So he cured a lot of people. But what made him really great was not the medicine. He was #1 in Beijing, acupuncture. My mom had some medical problem when my mom was a teenager. That kind of problem typically could be a lifelong problem. So my mom went to this guy, her uncle, just one time, acupuncture. The whole problem gone for life. My mom never had the same problem repeated ever again. That's how great it is. Today, can you find any Chinese doctor as good as that? No way. So this guy, basically he was doing this all free, basically just practicing the good deed and helping the people, help the world, just emulate around him, right? Obviously, he did not do this for a living until the Second Republic, after the Manchurian Empire was out, the Second Republic, and you know what a republic is. This was established in 1949. So this great uncle of mine, he found himself in a new situation because at that time, all personal or private business all turned into the government, right? It's called a nationalized. It's a nationwide movement, and there's no option. If you don't want to turn it in, basically turn your personal asset into the government asset, what's going to happen? The government send in their inspectors and they destroy everything because it's not up to their standard. And I know this because I used to work with an older gentleman. He used to own a drugstore, and he told me that's how he had to turn in his own business and to make it a government business. He said at the beginning, of course, I didn't want to, give up. But hey, the authority keeps sending people coming here and just basically destroyed all the medicines I had in my store because they were off grade, supposedly. So eventually he gave up. He became an employee of his own, business, a salary man. So that's what happened to my great uncle too. He never had to use this, talent, the medical talent, to make a living, but now he did. Okay, so he became a salary man too. His medical business became government-owned business, government operated. He was an employee, and that his story, right? So the gentleman I just mentioned earlier, that who's in San Francisco today, uh, his grandfather owned a civil engineering business in Guangzhou, which was the first uh, commercial port in China opened up to the West at the later time of the Manchurian Empire. So, anyway, this gentleman's grandfather, the same thing. He had a civil, either himself or his parents had a, basically a civil engineering business, so they did not have to worry about 3 meals a day. So he was doing exactly the same thing. Okay, opened a medical service office where he treated all patients for free of charge, and he gave away all the medicine, basically, along with the prescription he gave to everybody. That was good, right? Then, same year, 1949, the Second Republic of China was founded by that. Okay, forget him, whoever that is. I don't need to bring him up. So anyway, the grandpa of this gentleman uh, became the employee of his own business too. Okay, so ever after that, everything has to be passed down, not to your family. It's not a family secret anymore, but to whoever the government tell you to pass on. You think people actually volunteer all that just to give anyone? That's not their own choice? I don't know about that. But anyway, so that was that. In this session, I just talk purely about the longevity, the health, and all that. How did that, basically uh, get associated with Taoism? Until next session, ciao.